Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Reds Rundown podcast, hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob, he's Joe, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Joe, how was your weekend? Outside of yet again another disappointing Reds weekend, but how was your weekend otherwise?
It's great. Got some college football fantasy drafts in, two different ones, and then, NFL fantasies coming around. It's always, the one thing you can say as a Reds fan is it's always good that the Reds seemingly end up putting the nail in the coffin in themselves by this point, and now football season's here. So at least there's something else to shift our focus to. Still be watching the Reds down the stretch, hoping to find those gems, but man, was that a rough week for the Reds.
Oh, no doubt. And I will say, we can at least count on the Reds for being consistent in terms of consistently being disappointing at this point. And maybe it's just because we've had over a decade of David Bell, Joe. So we will have to see. The Reds definitely had an opportunity this weekend, Joe, twice even, to really put themselves in a pretty strong position, to the point where they potentially would have only been 3.5 games back of the wild card, Joe. But they were incapable of doing so. But before we do that, we will say we are going to be talking about Joey Votto pretty extensively today, I would assume, compared to everything else. So the question of the day is going to revolve around, what is your favorite Joey Votto moment? Joe, you and I will talk about this a little bit later, but what is your favorite Joey Votto moment of all time? Question of the day can be anything. Let us know on the social media accounts, or you can let us know in the comments on YouTube if you are listening there or watching there. But let's hop into this awful week, I'm going to call it, even though the Reds technically only finished one game under 500, Joe, for the week. Still, I'm going to call it an awful week. So let's hop into it. First game of the week, Reds actually do win 6-3. TJ Friedl has an awesome game, hitting his 10th home run already. Ty France with 2 big hits as well. Julian Aguilar. Andrew Abbott was scratched literally the day before this. They bring up Aguilar, and in 4 innings only gives up 4 hits, strikes out 2, does give up 2 runs, 1 on a home run. The win going to Tony Santillan. He did exactly what you're not supposed to do, and that's just him being young. He pitched to Vladdy Guerrero Jr., and he gave up a home run in the first inning after getting 2 quick outs. So learned from that one and settled in very nicely in my mind, Joe. But we started to see the unravelings of Alexis Diaz, as he would give up a run on a home run in this game as well. But the Reds held on. They won after 4 runs in the 6th. They would go on to lose the next day, though, 10-3. An absolute meltdown from Carson Spires, giving up 9 earned runs. Noelvi Marte with a big fielding error. He has been awful in the field. But Spires would end up giving up 5 home runs, including 2 to George Springer, 1 to Alejandro Kirk, 1 to, I forget what this Horwitz guy, his name is, and then 1 to Jimenez as well. The Reds would do okay. Ellie with a triple in this game, but that would really be about it for them. Jacob Junis, and then our good friend, not Tyler Mahle, but Luke Mahle, would end up pitching. So if you saw that in the pitching department, you might think, is Tyler Mahle back? No, it was Luke Mahle, and you misread his name. But he would somehow give them 2 innings of no-hit baseball, Joe, and keep that ERA at a 0. The Reds would end up winning the next day, 11-7. So 2-1 up in Toronto, while our good friend Joey Votto was retiring. But big home run day for the Reds. Spencer Steer with a home run, Noelvi Marte with a home run, Jonathan India with a home run, and Ellie De La Cruz with his 22nd home run as well. And during the series, he would also steal his 60th base. So he's a 20-60 man right now, which is pretty awesome to see. But Nick Martinez had his worst start in 4 starts. He gave up 6 runs, but the Reds fought back in this one, Joe. After being down 6-0, they would come all the way back. Fernando Cruz would also continue his unraveling, and would give up a run as well, making it a little bit dicey in this game, but the Reds would ultimately go on to win. Then the week continued to be weird. You had a pitcher's duel between Nick Lodolo and Paul Skeens. Both were lighting it up. Honestly, Lodolo, up until his epic meltdown in the fourth inning, was looking better than Paul Skeens in my mind. I think the Reds were making some good contact against Skeens, even if they weren't getting the hits that they needed to. And ultimately would not matter, as Lodolo would go on to give up 5 runs in this inning, and it was mostly just because he started hitting guys, he started walking guys. The Reds did have some bad defensive gaffes in this game, Joe, but Lodolo showed a lot of immaturity to be able to not get through this one. Something that you'll hope that he will make a better decision on in the future. This was also, I believe, recently acquired from the waiver wires, Dom Smith's first game as a Red, as well as Ahmed Rosario, who got a hit in his first game as a Red. And then it looked like things were going well. The Reds were winning 5-0 on the Friday game, Joe, with a big home run by Tyler Stevenson, a big double by Espinal as well to drive in a couple runs. Buck, they had to do, because the entire rotation is falling apart, Joe, they had to do a bullpen game. Buck Farmer looked awesome. Sam Moll looked great. Tony Santillan looked great. And then Alan Busnitz really struggled. And to try to put the fire out, David Bell decided, let's go to Justin Wilson. What a great decision to do. I can't express how much I love seeing Justin Wilson come in and give up big hits and blow up games where it seemed like things might be able to figure themselves out. They did not, unfortunately. The Reds would go on and try to bring this one back, but they would not be able to get more than 3 hits for the rest of the game after Bailey Falter was relieved. So things were looking bad, but the Reds did on Saturday go and win a game 10-2. Again, Julian Aguilar, 6 innings pitched for the kid, only on 91 pitches, which was really impressive as well. And then Casey Kelly, Pat Kelly's son, who hadn't pitched in the majors in a while, came in, pitched the final 3 innings. A huge day for this team where you thought maybe things were turning around. It saved the bullpen immensely that the 2 newest pitchers on the team were the ones that could get it done. Steer with some big hits, but mostly it was pretty much everybody. Dom Smith was his first hit as a Red as well, with a big double, and the team cruised to that 10-2 victory. And then we get to the Sunday game, Joe. It's looking bad. Nick Martinez pitches a pretty solid game. He and Carson Spires combined for 7 innings, 8 hits, only 1 earned run with 2 strikeouts. Emilio Pagan as well has come back and been very, very useful. I regret slightly my hating on him earlier in the season, Joe. But LL Ortiz was insanely good, and it would take the relievers for the Reds to come back. They went up 3-2 in the 7th inning, and I said this, I was in the middle of our college draft the other day, or yesterday, Joe, and I saw Alexis Diaz hit the first guy, and I said, I have to go to the bathroom. And I literally walked over and said out loud so that my friends could hear it while we were in the middle of our draft, I bet he gives up a 2-run home run in this next at-bat and we lose. By the time that I got done with the bathroom, which was a quick trip, Joe, I came back and saw that the Reds had indeed given up a 2-run home run to Yasmani Grandal, his 2nd of the series, by the way, only his 7th of the year. So over 25% of his home runs, close to 30% of his home runs have come against the Reds in just this series alone for the entire season, including off of our stellar closer who had not blown a sleeve, I believe, since May. So somewhere around that, May, June, something like that. He was like 23 in a row or something like that. So really just the nail in the coffin, like you talked about, Joe. The Reds would go on. For some reason, we just cannot beat this Pirates team. And it would be a 3-4 weekend. Very disappointing. I thought they might be able to salvage one of the games, but outside of the 7-0 game where, our boy Lodolo had just an absolute meltdown, dude, the Reds looked like they were in like these other 2 games easily. They could, if the bullpen had held on, they win both of these games. And I understand one of the games was a bullpen day, but like it was wild to me some of these decisions that were being made for who was coming in and who was coming out. It was just, again, I mean, it's a huge swing. You go from being the opportunity to be 65 and 66, Joe, to 63 and 68 on maybe 2 or 3 decisions in a series against a team that's I still don't think is better than we are, but
Yeah, I mean, it was rough week, rough series against the Pirates specifically. I think the bullpen was misused. I won't put blame on them. They had a lot on their plates covering for all these injuries and the bullpen days. So I guess thanks to the bullpen for at least trying. Just for pitchers going into different situations has been kind of a theme for David Bell over his 7 years as manager for us. That's not, at this point he's got to figure that stuff out. He's been given a lot of good bullpen pieces. Some of them have been injured, some of them have been traded away, but not figuring out those roles and maybe believing in guys too long. Like Alexis Diaz as a closer or Fernando Cruz. It's kind of his thing. Like, you can be a player's manager, but he is not the best manager because he's almost too into the players at that rate, like letting them figure things out. So that's something to consider here. I think, bullpen usage, and maybe if you're going to, fire David Bell, which we are both on the train of now, that's someone I want to get is someone who knows how to use. You can be a player's manager, but knows how to use guys, hold them accountable, use guys in different situations. I will say, Aguilar did a really good job after coming up. He's been good. And then also, you mentioned the 2060 for Ellie De La Cruz. Only 4 other players in MLB history have done that. Ronald Acuna, Joe Morgan, Eric Davis, and Ricky Henderson. Mm-hmm. There's a chance he can get to 30-80. So if you're looking for something to watch the rest of the year, I don't think anyone's had a 30-80 year. And then also, not related to the Reds, but also on the same, wavelength, Shohei Ohtani just hit 40-40. He was the fastest person to go 40-40 in MLB history. Could go 50-50 this year. So, the Reds are still worth watching for different things. We talked about that last week in terms of like, why are we still watching and all that. Going 30-80, I don't think it's ever happened. I think Acuna came close because he had 73 stolen bases the year I think he went 30-73. So, it's not likely 10 home runs in a month when you only have about 20 and then 20 stolen bases in a month. I mean, it could happen, but very impressive for Ellie to do something that only 4 guys in history have done, and some really good players in that list.
I will say we have a month and a week left, and he is only 8 home runs away from 30.
Right, because
he had 2 more over the weekend. So he is in a pretty good position, to say the least. And I'm certainly going to be watching all the games, Joe. I mean, you know that. There's no doubt about it. Like, I still love this team, and it has been interesting to watch and see what they are going to ultimately end up doing for the rest of the season. You are still going to be watching for stuff like Noelvi Marte. While I did say that he's been bad defensively, batting wise, he has been better, Joe. I know you and I wanted to see him hit a little bit better. His batting average over the last 7 games is up to 261. Over the last 15 games, since you and I specifically were like, hey, we want to see him hit at least 250. He is up to 255. He is striking out less. He's still not walking a lot, but he's making more contact. He seems to be making better decisions. His OPS is above 600 now, which is not great, but still, not terrible either. It's getting near the 700s, we'll say. So that wouldn't be terrible for him either. A couple more good weeks here, and he may end up batting, I don't know, 220, 230 this year, considering how bad things started out and how little reps he had before he had to come up. And now that we're probably not going to make the playoffs, it doesn't really matter. He can get as many at-bats as he wants because we don't have to worry about him not being able to play in the playoffs. So it is still sad, to be honest with you. But it's I think relieving, at least for me personally. There was still a tiny bit of hope there for me that has been totally snuffed out by this series. And this upcoming week for the Reds is not going to be an easy one, to be honest with you. Even though they are playing the Athletics, that team has been playing a lot better over the last few weeks. So we'll have to see kind of how that goes. But yeah, this team is kaput, Joe. But it's still worth watching for Ellie, like you said. I do want to put that out there. I'm not going to be a total downer. I would definitely still watch for things like Ellie and other stuff that's going on. But yeah, I think we can put that
the other
final
thing,
nail
you're right.
in.
You're right. There's stuff worth watching for Arte specifically, as you mentioned. Is he going to win the job? Are they going to have other guys? Is Candy going to be on the team? Is France going to be on the team? That third base spot, Espinal, all that stuff. It is really fascinating to me. You mentioned heating up lately. 233 for August, 18 games. So that's about when we talked about it, right? So he's, you're right. Like he can get up to 220, and that's like, hey, maybe you do get a chance to start at third base next year. Maybe we have like actual spring training matters where there's actually position battles. It might be a thing that actually happens next year. When I usually think that things are slotted to be how they're going to go. I think there might be something like that to go on. And then the other guys who we're taking flyers on, it is worth watching them see how they do. I mean, Dom Smith, Rosario. Ty France, are we going to bring any of those guys back? Do they love Cincinnati? Do they want to stay and try to build a winner here and be, help us get to the next level? There's stuff worth watching. We'll be watching all the games, and Ellie is the biggest calling card for that now that we have the pitchers hurt, is just seeing something incredible on any given day. Hitting those milestones, being one of the best players for a season we've seen in different categories, I think is going to be fun. So you're right. It's over for the Reds in terms of competitiveness, but there's still things to watch, and hopefully we can see some development here for some of the players.
Yeah, and in a year where batting averages are down, Tyler Stevenson has gotten his up to 255. He's become one of the best catchers in baseball in terms of at least hitting. He still does have a pretty good overall year as well. I believe his WAR now is up to, let me find it, is up to a full 2 even, which is pretty solid, all things considered. If you can get a 3, I think, out of your catcher every season, Joe, we'll be happy. I think that the way he's trending batting-wise, that could happen for the next, I don't know, we'll say 5 years before he starts to fall off and become just a hitter. I think we got 5 more years of him catching, most likely. Indy is still up to 250. His OPS is still not too bad. Mostly his slugging percentage has come up, which has been nice. And then, like you said, Ellie's having an awesome season. 265 hitter now. He is really, I think, coming into his own. Joe, I'm going to be honest. I think 280 plus next year is not out of the realm of possibility, which is, I think, very exciting considering where we have been, were, and are continuing to be. And then the last guy I'll give a little shout out to is TJ Friedl. If you had him becoming a power hitter at age 28, I would have told you that you were crazy. But I believe right now, Joe, he is on pace to have the most. I believe his home runs for the season, at least, at the pace that he is going, would be up there with Ellie's. He'd be a 30-plus home run guy for the season had he played from the start, which is pretty insane considering that's not what I think he's ever been known for, really. So if he can continue that and be that next year, I will personally be very excited.
That is something interesting. He's averaging about 1 home run for about 20 at bats. A little bit better than that, but about 20 at bats. If you want to do the math, you extrapolate that out to a whole season. Just say you get 600 at bats, 30 home runs.
Yeah, which is wild. I would never put that down for him. I'm pretty excited and hope that will continue for him. I think they're finding stuff, like I said. I mean, I think Espinal, Fairchild, I think they're the only 2 guys that I think are for sure bench guys for me personally for next year. I know Fairchild's a little up in the air, but I just think defensively and stuff, he's just been so helpful for this team. And I mean, he's got a 1-1 WAR, Joe, and he's doing it with basically no at bats compared to everybody else, and he had to hit against righties for like half the season. So like when he's not doing that, and only maybe doing it for a quarter of the season, his batting average is probably closer to like a 250 plus. And you're seeing, him and Espinal be 2 guys that I think they're going to be really, really pumped for the next few years. So I love that. Espinal also finding his power, which has been wild to me. That's been he is hitting the crap out of the ball. I don't think I ever would have thought that this guy would be able to do that. But he's a hard guy to strike out, and I'm loving it. And then France as well, Joe. He's raised his batting average significantly since becoming a Red. I think his batting average has gone up almost 20 points. I want to say, or no.
Is it like 240?
Yeah, he's at
240 with the Reds.
Yeah, so almost 20 points as a Red compared to his time in Seattle. He's added some good power. He almost always has a pretty solid at bat. He's not striking out a significant amount either. So like there are a couple guys who I think they found some stuff with, who I think they should be should be pumped about. I think the real questions are going to come down to people like CES, Jamer, and Noel V. Marte. I think those 2 corner spots are going to be of the utmost importance going into next year. And if for some reason they can re-sign Amed Rosario to be a nice little piece for them as well,
Yeah.
I'm open to that. Maybe it's that you move Steer back to first base or third base, Joe, and you put Rosario in left and then go sign an outfielder. I am currently, I was all on the train, as you know, for a while of get these young guys going, all that kind of stuff. We're going to be heading into age 28 seasons with Tyler Stevenson, with Jonathan India, 29 with Steer, or 27 with Steer, 29 with Friedel, Espinal, age 30, Stuart Fairchild, age 29, like Ty France, age 30. Like, these guys are all heading into like their, what should be their primes. You don't want to waste it with, I think, 2 very important positions, specifically power positions, Joe, not being filled right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and corner outfielder too. So like, I think you're good up the middle, but you got to find some stuff, left, right, first, and third. And I think once they figure that out, I think they're going to be in a really good spot. And I'm not willing to give up on guys like CES or even Marte right now. I'm just saying, like, if they got to be bench pieces for a year or so, then whatever, go get what you got to do to compete next year. Because I think with the 3 pitchers as well, and a slightly rebuilt bullpen next year, Joe, I really, honest to God, I think they're 5 signings away from being a very good team next year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's what's kind of so frustrating is had things started off better for the Reds and had they made a couple different moves, they very easily could be a team that made the playoffs at least. If you want to talk championship contenders, maybe a couple steps away, that's fine. But yeah, I'm with you. I think the good news for me, at least, is we can debate about which positions they end up playing. But Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, Jonathan India, because they did not trade him at the deadline, and all get spots in the field next year, right? Tyler Stevenson as well. He's got his spot. So that's 4 guys are in the lineup every day. I don't care.
Freedom.
I think Friedel as well, assuming he's healthy and assuming he comes back, and he's been playing well, so we'll give him that. So that's 5 guys. Espinal has locked up his spot on the bench for me. But I kind of want the next manager, assuming we hire a new manager, to be an old school guy who makes everyone else earn their spot. And maybe Matt McClain. You can have Matt McClain in the top 5 too if you think he's going to come back healthy and everything. But make everyone else earn your spot. Like, hey, Will Benson, you're hitting 191, dude, 192. You have a negative 1.1 more. You're out of here, man. We're giving someone else a chance. Like, I want to see some accountability here. It's a good start to a team. It's good that you have some options about how you can move guys around to fit more power into the lineup or just better players. But I would like to see teams battle, and I would like to say, hey, like, these next 2 months, like we said, a couple weeks ago, Rob, after the trade deadline, Ty France, go earn your spot next year, man. Go earn your spot, Marte, when you're coming back from the suspension from steroids. Like, make it so people think that it's not because you're using steroids that you're a good hitter, because you do have a good eye, too. It's not just the power, and it's not just the pop in your bat. So, I'm with you. I think there's a lot to be determined. First, third base, corner outfielder. They're going to need to do some more signings, too. So maybe that 5 or 6 that we know have spots. Again, 5 being the guys that named, then 6 being McClain. If you want to slide him in, I would probably slide him in.
I would.
But if you have 7 or 8 guys that are in the lineup every day, and then you have guys fighting for those bench spots, the competition in spring training is going to be amazing. And I'm excited for that. It's just a matter of whether we're going to go sign those guys, have those guys fill in those positions that we really need, which is very much power outfielder, first base if one of these guys doesn't work out, third base if Marte doesn't work out. So a lot to be decided still in these last couple of months, and I'm excited for the offseason potential here, knowing that we have 5 to 6 guys who are starters and 1 bench guy who's awesome.
Yeah, no, I can't wait either. And, like I said, I mean, they do have 3 great starting pitchers. And it seems like Rhett Lauder may be closer than we think. The one thing I forgot to put in here is that he did make his first AAA start and looked awesome. He has been on fire. Joe, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think he might get a September call-up. I think they did this to see how he would handle AAA. And they may, with the way that there are no starters right now on this team, since the September call-ups wouldn't count against his service time, Joe, I have a very distinct feeling we may see Rhett Lauder in September. I'm not going to say for sure, but with the amount of injuries that we have and the need for some arms, and him getting called up to AAA, that seems to be there seems to be a path for the young man to potentially get at least one start in the bigs, his first big league start before the end of the season. So I do want to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, not currently on the 40-man roster, so you'd have to finagle things around. I think they could easily do that. They have some guys we can give. Yeah, we can get rid of some guys. There's some guys we just don't need on the 40-man roster anymore, and by offseason, you need to have them on the 40-man roster anyway, or someone's going to pick them up on the Rule 5 draft. But yeah, the other thing I mentioned a couple weeks ago was I'm looking for minor league guys to step up because a lot of minor league rankings had us down pretty close to the bottom of Major League Baseball, and I know you disagree. I actually kind of agree with that because we just have so few good prospects who are even close to being ready, and even ones that like even in the lower minor leagues, like there's a couple guys that you can name, but we're coming off like a year ago where we were really good farm system, and now they're all up, and there's just no one there. So, Rhett Lauder stepping up is huge. Still don't agree with shutting down Chase Burns and some of the other guys from this current draft for the rest of the year. But Cam Collier, still on. I know I mentioned it last week. He's still on it there. He had 2 home runs in a game this week, killing the ball. That is a guy who could be very important to our future. Still has a couple levels to rise up before he really gets to be something that we're talking about helping in the near future. But I think you have to at least be happy with some of the farm system guys stepping up. I have not checked in on Connor Phillips, Rob. I don't know if you have. He went down to rookie ball so that he could kind of reset and see if he can figure some things out. I don't know if he started yet in AAA since he's been back.
I want to say Connor Phillips did have his first AAA start. I can't remember how it did. Let me check. Or how it went, I should say. Did. Wow.
Bad podcasting on my part. Bad setting up a question neither of us know the answer to off the top of our heads. That's bad. But no, I think he can be huge too. He can be huge for us too.
Yeah, I think he will be. I think they seemingly felt like he could find it again down there. So, and I mean, I think he will. To be honest with you, you don't go from just. The only way that ever happens, Joe, is if you truly are, like if it's just like it's a mental thing, right? Like it's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing. So let me see. Did he have another start?
He pitched on August 21st. He went 2 innings, gave up 1 run.
Okay,
not the greatest. He had 4 walks.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's
maybe it could be a start to say it's not a good outing for me, but it could be a good start.
Yeah,
based on what he was doing.
It's pretty bad actually. 3 hits, 2 innings pitched.
He has
4. He had give up 7 guys on there. He must have gotten a double play at some point, and he hit a guy, so 8 in 2 innings pitched. That's pretty bad actually.
But
well, it's okay.
main point being that we have some guys playing well. I was hoping Connor Phillips could come back too, but we do have some guys playing well too. So hopefully some of these guys in the next couple years can help us or be trade pieces. But also hopefully we hold this front office accountable and sign some good players, Rob.
Yeah, well, and the lucky thing for Connor Phillips, he's still only 23. So he's got plenty of time. There are guys who come up at 25, 26 as pitchers. He's probably not going to be an ace, but he will probably be a 4th or 5th starter if he can find it. Or maybe they convert him to the bullpen. He's got good stuff, so might be maybe he just needs an off season, to kind of re-find himself. Maybe go on a spiritual journey somewhere. An Aaron Rodgers type
Aaron Rodgers style. Yep.
There you go.
Jinx right there. Oh boy.
Yeah, we're killing it today. Andrew Abbott, as we mentioned before, Joe is on the injured list now, and I think it's just because he's tired. I will say I initially wanted to do this as a what the hell is going on type question, like why is everybody hurt? I just think he's tired. I think he was kind of faltering around this time again last year. I'm just going to stick with what I said last week, Joe, which is the man has to go and work on his endurance this offseason. I don't care what that looks like. I don't care if it's, running a bunch. I don't care if it's putting on a bunch of muscle. Whatever that is, it needs to happen, and it needs to happen soon because he's too pivotal for a playoff run. He just is. And it seems like he crushes it during the summer, and then as soon as the summer comes down, or starts to wind down, is when he also winds down. So, I will admit I'm a little concerned. Not a lot, but a little bit. I just think it's not a great look for you when you are unable to how do I put this? When you're unable to stay in good shape. To me, that's a you thing. That's not a coach thing. That's not an anybody else thing. That is a you have to do what you need to do to stay in shape and make sure that you can get through the season okay. If it ends up coming out that there's something else, then I'll eat crow, whatever. That's fine. I'm calling him out for something that's not true, but it seems very true to me based on what you and I have watched all season long, which is this man wouldn't give up more than 2 runs all season, and then all of a sudden everything's up. He's walking more guys. He's basically not striking out anybody, and he now goes on to the IL for a sore arm, I believe is what they described it as. So,
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I formally said that I wanted all 3 starting pitchers to push through the end of the year to push longer in games this year, and figure this out this season, even if it goes poorly, even if Abbott kept on giving up 6 runs every start or something like that. Now I'm of the opinion, let's just shut everyone down. Like, Lodolo's struggling. Clearly injuries are getting him. Abbott, the sore arm, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but definitely probably some arm fatigue at the very least. Hunter Green's on the IL already. Let's just put these guys in bubble wrap and save them for next year and just pray to the baseball gods that we are more fortunate next year, because this year's over, and I don't think any more experience this year pitching while they're tired or hurt is actually going to help them. They'll probably do more harm than good. So, sorry that it's happening. I know we talked about the Reds training staff yesterday. Maybe that's something to target this offseason as a strength and conditioning coach that can really help these guys in that area. But I would say let's just shut it down and have bullpen days and have guys come up who maybe we can find a flyer. Maybe we can find a Fernando Cruz who helps us for 2 months next season before we end up getting rid of him, hopefully next time, or something like that. Maybe we find some guys who can really make an impact, but it's definitely concerning that we can't get through the season with any of these 3 guys.
Yeah, and they were like, we're going to trade away relievers so that we can have guys come back in. Where's Ian Jabot? Where's he been? I thought he was going on a rehab assignment. I know Suter just went on one, so that's good. At least we'll get him back, and God willing, we will be done with Justin Wilson at that point. I just don't know if my mind can handle Justin Wilson anymore. Maybe this is just an Emilio Pagan situation where I'm exaggerating my disdain for Justin Wilson, but Joe, I don't feel like it is. I'll just be honest with you. But yeah, I think that'll wrap it up for pitching, and we have to discuss, Joe, the saddest news of the day, but probably also the best news of the day in a weird way, like in terms of just good feelings. It's Joey Votto. Joey Votto has decided to step away from baseball. I watched, he went on, oh gosh, which show was it? Which Dan was it?
Dan Patrick.
Thank you, Dan Patrick. Man, I wanted to say Levitard so bad, and I know that's not right. I know who he is. Brain just was like, Levitard. No, they went to, he went on the Dan Patrick show and basically shared that his favorite player growing up with the Blue Jays was, weirdly enough, his hitting coach down in AAA. And he was asking him to give up an at-bat and, like, what he would do in this at-bat or some sort of conversation. And he said it felt like it was a roundabout moment and time for him to say, I think I'm done. I don't think I'm going to take this at-bat. He walked away, like, literally that day. It was just some sort of epiphany that he had. And I loved, he went in and he went to the Reds clubhouse, which I think is so interesting. Doesn't even go to Toronto's clubhouse, goes straight to Toronto to go to the Reds clubhouse to say bye and thank you to all the people there. He may have gone to Toronto, but nobody, like, to the Blue Jays one, but I didn't see anything about that. So it's pretty much all Red stuff, which I think was really cool. And he went on to say, like, the game's just faster, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, I just don't have any of that. I can't offer that. So he felt like it was time for him to hang it up, Joe. That was tough. I got a little bit emotional when the Reds put out their video of him, in his first spring training, talking about what he wanted to be and what he could offer, and they all said he did. And even now, it chokes me up a little bit just because I loved him, man. I mean, he was so much fun to watch. The one thing is, Joe, is I wish that Marty would not have shit on him as much as he did, because it slightly started to change everybody's perspective on arguably one of the 5 greatest Reds to ever play. And it's just was very disappointing for me to, during that like 5 or 6 year stretch where it was like the two of them butting heads. But other than that, I'll pass it over to you for comments on the positive side as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Marty, near the end of his career, every star player the Reds had, he butted heads with. Ken Griffey Jr. and Joey Votto. It's, great broadcaster in his day, but just got to the point where he was doing more harm to the team than actually help. And, that was the latter years of Marty. Appreciated that he tried to keep it honest, but sometimes went too far. Votto was a guy who I would never say is my favorite player. I was a Brandon Phillips guy myself. Loved the defense, loved the guy. But you always appreciated having him in the lineup. You appreciated a bat, at least for the first 10 or so years of his career, you could count on to maybe try to go hit 300. Some down years in between there and some injuries definitely messed with that. But a guy that I think I appreciated more as time went on, I'd say even from like 2015 on. I think part of it had to do with he was obviously way better before that point, and he won the MVP in 2010. But he was a guy who was like standoffish of the media, kind of quiet. We didn't get to see too much about him. He just kind of did his job, and I appreciate that in some regards. I do think that I kind of wish he was the player later in his career where he was a leader and kind of helping the guys a little bit earlier too. I think that's something the Reds needed, but I didn't think he thought it was his place. We had guys like Scott Rowland on the team. My favorite memories of Joey Votto, that's the question of the day, I think actually happened, most of them happened past 2015. Like, the MVP season was great and he played well, but like, do I remember a specific moment? A couple of home runs here and there? Yeah, but like, I think we had so much personality from Joey Votto from 2015 through the end of his career. We had some good moments too, like the 7 home runs in 7 games was amazing. That's my favorite Joey Votto moment because the Votto still bangs. Checking Twitter every day, just the excitement the Reds were celebrating those home runs. We saw him interact with fans, talk trash to fans. We saw him do more of the Instagram stuff, do videos, and try to relate to his younger teammates. Yeah, and it just made me like, those are my favorite Joey Votto moments, even if it was at the end of his career where he wasn't as good of a player. I'm excited for him. I know. Here's the thing, Rob. I'm sure you probably have similar conversations with older people. Had it this weekend with some family members. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He may not be first ballot. He might get first ballot. I don't think he's like a for surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. The milestones still matter in some regard. 2,000 hits, 2,135 hits, 356 home runs. 294 batting average. He doesn't hit the 3,000 hit mark. He doesn't hit the 500 home run mark. He doesn't hit the 300 batting average mark. Maybe he would have if he would have retired after his injury in 2022 that he's been referencing, of when he should have retired is what he said. But this is a Hall of Famer. This is a guy who, in the era of baseball where Scott Rowland got in last year.
Yep.
If Scott Rowland's in, Joey Votto's in. Like, I would argue Scott Rowland maybe shouldn't be in, and Reds fans might not like that. But if Scott Rowland's in, Joey Votto's in. I do not like that the milestones don't mean anything anymore, but that's just the way the game has changed. Like, the arms are faster. We use bullpen pitchers now. It's not like Pete Rose can go get 4,000 hits because he's facing a guy who's been pitched 120 pitches in the 8th inning, and he gets another hit there, and that's how it goes. So I appreciate he's a very good player, Hall of Famer, Reds Hall of Famer. Probably going to have a statue out front. Yeah. I would argue not the best Reds player of all time, but if he's not number 1, he's probably number 2. And the longevity he had with the Reds and only playing for the Reds does mean something for that. Just heck of a career. And, like I said, I appreciated how he interacted with the fans for the last, 9 or so years of his career. He really stepped into a role of being a guy that everyone wanted to root for. When early on in his career, Rob, I'm sure you remember, and I'm sorry to keep on going on this tangent, but there was a lot of people like Marty, like everyone else, who's like, dude, put the ball in play, try to hit for power. Like, there was a lot of criticism of the guy and a lot of, hey man, you're missing games for vertigo. We need you to win. And that's fair too. Like, there's some fair criticism of like, hey, he did get injured, and I do think he could hit some of those milestones if he did play a lot more. But man, the dude was going through a lot mentally, and some of the injuries he can't really overcome. And I think he played the game the right way. It's a shame that the lasting result from all this, Rob, all this talk of me being sad about Joey Votto being gone, there are 2 things. One, just insane anger at the Reds front office for never putting a better team around him. You had a guy for at least 12 years, top of his game, and then at the end of his career, like, why didn't we try to go in more in the 2020 to 2022 years where we really could have helped him get a World Series? It's all he ever said. His first But him and Jay Bruce wanted to be Reds their whole career. They wanted to win a World Series for Cincinnati, and like some of that's lip service, but like I think they were pretty genuine about that. And then number two, I'm excited for the next step. I think it's probably more of a broadcast booth type of guy than a coach. He seems to like the history of the game. Hope he takes the rest of the year off and just goes enjoys himself, vacations, and then if he gets that itch to be back around baseball, I hope he gets back in the booth. I hope the Reds can hire him and they can do like a 3-man booth every game with the rotating trio of Barry Larkin, Joey Votto, and Chris Welsh, surrounded by John Sadak, and then Cowboy can come in if there's ever a radio conflict. So that's a long-winded way to say thank you, Joey Votto, for your service. I'll always remember the 7 home runs, 7 games, favorite moment, and just really appreciate how you developed as a person throughout your career, not just a player.
Yeah, I love that. That was beautiful. Yeah, I will say I have two very distinct moments for Joey Votto in my mind. The one was back I want to say it was like 2011 on Mother's Day. I will never forget watching. Funny enough, I was celebrating Mother's Day and his 3 home runs, including the walk-off. Just a weird day. It was so rainy, very muggy, early on in the season, and it's just like this Reds team needed a jolt. I think it was 2012. I want to say it was 2012. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm almost certain it was 2011 or 2012, one of the two. And he hits just 3 absolute shots and wins the game. And I just was like, this guy is an absolute superstar in my mind. I'm still pissed off that he did not win Rookie of the Year, losing to Giovanni Soto, I believe. Let me make sure I have that correct on here. I've got it up right now. Yeah, Giovanni Soto, catcher for the Cubs. Obviously, Cubs bias, I think, came in there. I'm pretty sure Joey should have won it that year. And that happened to him a lot in his career. And I think that's, I guess I'll give my second moment. My second moment was when he started doing the Ted Lasso, Jamie, me stuff with his back. That was absolute classic, like amazing Joey Votto, like you said, and that showed his personality, not just who he was as a player, but how fun and interesting he was and how up, on the times he was with everything. But I want to give a couple of different stats and some different things to where I think Votto got screwed pretty hard, Joe, just because he was in Cincinnati. Like that MVP in 2017, I understand that Stanton hit a bunch of home runs, but like, dude, the MVP is the most valuable player, not just the guy who hits the most home runs. Votto was by far the best player in 2017. It was one of his only 2 seasons he played all 162 games, Joe. And he walked 134 times, 36 home runs, 100 RBIs. He batted .320 that year with an OPS of 1032. He was getting walked the most. Like, you think that Giancarlo Stanton was, he was a powerful hitter, everything. But Joey Votto led the league in intentional walks that year, Joe. 20 of them. Like, those are like, not the Barry Bonds type level walks, but they were a pretty significant amount. And then, finishing third as well in 2015, I still think that he could have potentially pushed up for that one as well. But, I think the guy, if he had 3 MVPs, I don't think anybody would be, talking about, well, was he really an MVP? Like, is he a Hall of Famer? Like, 3 MVPs, I think, would pretty much guarantee you a Hall of Fame kind of spot, especially with how long that he's been going. I consider that he has 2, personally. I still think that 2017 one, he was absolutely robbed. That one pisses me off. But when you lead the league in on-base percentage, which, as we know, became the most important stat in baseball and is still the most important stat in baseball, how often are you getting on base? He led the league 7 times. That's like leading the league in batting average the way they used to do it 7 times. If you have a guy who leads the league in a very specific important category like that 7 times, he deserves to be in. The fact that he averaged, even with so many down years, Joe, 28 home runs, 90 RBIs, 108 walks a season, with an on-base percentage of nearly .410. So getting on base almost 41% of the time. Think about how many Reds on this team aren't even getting on base 30% of the time, Joe. And and one of the old adages for the Hall of Fame has always been, if you can hit 3 out of 10 times, then you're a Hall of Famer. Well, if you can get on base 4 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer in my mind. If you're getting on base that often, I mean, dude, he had 2 years where he was getting on base over 45% of the time. He was getting on base in 2012, somehow only finished 14th in the MVP, but he led the league getting on base 47.4% of the time. Almost half of his at-bats, he was on base, whether it was a hit or a walk or an intentional walk. That is just unheard of, even in today's age of baseball. With everybody doing that, he is 100% a Hall of Famer. Every single writer that I saw that wrote about him on like MLB.com and everything, they all said that they were voting for him. So I have to hope that all these new age voters are going to be the ones who are going to be helping him go in there. I don't think he's going to be like a 90%er or anything, but I think he may scrape by on the first one. And if the Reds don't retire number 19 at the start of next year or even in the next 2 weeks, I will be very upset with them. There's just no reason to delay it at this point. Put him in the Reds Hall of Fame, retire his number, and get him involved with the team. Hell, go if he's not wanting to be away from baseball completely because he already had in his mind that he was going to be there through the rest of the season, go hire him on as a consultant right now and put him back in the dugout. If they really think that this team still even has a shot of trying to make a run over these last 35 games, then go call him up right now and get him back in there. Because, again, he went to the Reds dugout or clubhouse after his retirement. He did not go anywhere else. The first place he went was up to Toronto, where the Reds were, to go to the Reds clubhouse. If you don't think it matters to him, it matters immensely. So, yeah. And thank you, by the way, Joey, as well. But, yeah, I want to fight for his after career as well, because I think he deserves all of the love and recognition afterwards as well.
Well said. We could say I think Rookie of the Year is a given. He should have won that over Soto. I mean, higher WAR. It's close, but he should have won. The two MVPs. I mean, you could make a case. I'd probably say no, but I do wish in 2012 he could have played more of the season. He only played 111 games. That's what killed him. That was the year I think massively in his prime, 28 years old, the 47% on base percentage, the lead in the league in walks, even though he only played 111 games. Just extrapolate the stats out, and he would have a year that is worth knowing. We can admit Gold Glove was bullshit. He should have never won a Gold Glove. Love Joey Votto, never, but love you, dude. But no, but that. It's like this stuff does matter. It makes me angry at the voters too for some of the the whole game. It is what it is. That makes me angry every year. But for in season, how we remember players, it does matter. We have guys who have won MVP awards, and I'm not saying that these guys are anywhere close to Joey Votto's stance, but George Foster MVP award, not in the Hall of Fame. Zoilo, if I looked up his name, Zoilo Versalles from the Twins in 1965. MVP award. I don't know how the heck this guy won. 7.2 WAR. He won the MVP, and it was a very bad year. But he won. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Roger Maris. Most home runs in the American League in a single season before Aaron Judge comes around. Kind of a career that was shortened by injury, and he was kind of a streaky hitter too. But that's a guy that people know about. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Now Joey Votto is going to be in the Hall of Fame. You kind of wish that let's give him the Rookie of the Year, and let's see if he has a Rookie of the Year and an MVP, if that changes how people see him. I do think the small market probably hurt him. I do think the Reds not having a lot of competitive teams during his time. I mean, we made the playoffs, four times in his career, I think. Mm-hmm. 2010, 2012, 2014, and 2020. Is that right? Did I miss one? I may miss one. Either way.
And I think maybe 2015 as well. I think that they did that one game playoff too.
One of the Cueto game, one of those games. So that's probably pulling against him. But again, like you said, Rob, thanks Joey Votto, my mom's favorite player. I remember being at that. I think we went to a lot of Mother's Day games back then for my mom, and I think we were at that game. And just sorry, Mom, that he wasn't my favorite player, but he's a very good player, and he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm sorry for all the BS Dad talks about wanting those milestones to be hit, even though he does agree that Votto's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So.
Well, I want to point out two more things that I noticed. Joe, in 2017, the man had 51 more walks than he did strikeouts. That is absolutely insane. He had a WAR 1 year of an 8+, which I think is insane. And currently, his all-time WAR sits at 12th all-time. The man was within probably 2 decent years of no injuries from being a top 10 first baseman of all time, at least by WAR standards. So, which is supposed to be the ultimate statistic. So, when you put all those things together, Joe, it's just hard for me to say. I mean, he had a year of a 7 WAR, a 7.8, a 6.6, the 8.1. That last really good year that he had, where he even finished 16th in the MVP, he had a 3.7 WAR. I mean, the man's just it's incredible. He never had a year where he struck out more than 138 times, Joe. I'm pretty sure that Ellie had that by June. I'm joking partially, but like, you know, it just shows you how great he was. And I think if this guy had been able to have the same mental stability that he does, being in a smaller market, in a bigger market like the Yankees or whatever, he would have been a Hall of Famer without any question. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful game, and he made it, I think, all that much more beautiful. So, yeah. So thanks, Joey Votto. We are going to move on, unless if you have anything else, Joe, to the Oakland Athletics and their facing of the Reds.
Yeah, it feels weird going from all this emotional talk to going to previewing games that likely don't matter. But hey, here we are.
Yeah, I know, right? So here are the A's. They have a lineup consisting of players like Lawrence Butler, Brent Rooker, J.J. Bleday, Shea Langoliers, yep, Seth Brown, Daz Cameron, Zach Geloff, Daryl Hernandez, Max Schumann, Miguel Andujar, Tyler Nevin. I think that's mostly everybody. I could be missing one or two, but that's generally who they've got going on. Closer Mason Miller has been amazing. This A's team was expected to break things down. Brent Rooker and J.J. Bleday probably should have been shipped off, Joe. Maybe even Mason Miller, if we're being honest with ourselves here. But they are one of the worst teams in baseball. We are, I guess, catching them, if you want to say, at a good time, Joe. They have won. They're sitting right about 500. They've had about the similar last week as the Reds. We get them at home. Look, I think as long as you don't get to their back end of their bullpen, I think you're going to be fine. Just pitch around Brent Rooker and J.J. Bleday a little bit, and I think you can be fine. Like you said, we're going into some games that don't matter. I don't want the people to think that we don't care. But I am going to say there's not much to analyze here. I think 2-1 is possible right now against a team this bad. The Reds seem to do well against teams that are at the bottom of of each league. So I'm going to give them a 2-1 on this one. It'll really depend on what happens with the starting pitching, to be honest with you, Joe. But at least Aguiar and Lodolo, I believe, should potentially be going in this series. I want to say Lodolo for sure is, maybe Aguiar as well. So, and Aguiar's been consistent enough to be considered now. I'm like, okay, maybe he's a decent start. Not maybe future-wise yet, but at least right now he's had 2 solid outings. So we're gonna hope for a third. I believe it's gonna be. Is it gonna be Nick Martinez starting tonight, Joe? I want to say that's the case, but.
They have no pitchers listed for the Reds for the rest of the season. And they usually have 2 weeks worth of pitchers for every team listed on like ESPN and MLB. So who knows?
Well, this is a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday game or series as well. Look, I think 2-1 is about what you can expect against a team that's this bad. It's really only the Pirates that have been at the bottom of their divisions or their leagues that we've had problems with. Hitting's been getting sadly a little bit better as the pitching's been getting worse. So I'm going to go 2-1, Joe. I'm going to try to stay at least a little bit positive against a team that I don't think is very good before we head into a 4-game weekend series against the Brewers.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 as well. Not a very good team. I'm excited. I'm going to try to go. I don't know. It's one time we'll be talking about the Reds on this or the A's on this podcast, Rob. But I'm going to try to go when they play in Sacramento. That'll be fun watching them in a 13,000 seat stadium. They should have sold at the deadline because of this rebuild and trying to move teams. They should have done that, but they did not. So we'll have some really big stars for the A's possibly playing for the Sacramento at that point. So. Yeah, you're right. The team's not very good. They have a couple bright spots, both pitchers and batters. You kind of mentioned them in what you said. So To me, it's all about avoiding the couple hitters and to just getting to the pitchers as much as you can. Overall, this team is not very good. There's not a lot of talent on this team other than Bleday and Rooker in the field and a couple other pitchers. So I'll go 2-1. The Reds are a mess right now, but I think at home, you know, I think they can get some good play out of some of their new additions and Ellie alike, and just squeeze by with a 2-1 record.
We'll take that for now because then they head into the Brewers again. We don't need to go through their lineup again. We know what it is. They're dangerous even with Yelich out. This team can hit. You got to deal with the Contrerases. Try not to give up the solo home runs to Rhys Hoskins to lose the games there as well. This is a makeup game, even though the Reds were playing pretty decently against them last time that we were in Cincinnati. We are still looking at a relatively rough series. They will be playing, I believe it is twice on Friday, so a noon game, 12:40 game, and a normal time of a 6:40. And then you got your Saturday and Sunday games. I would assume we'll face old friend Frankie Montas in that series as well, most likely. So that'll be interesting to see because apparently the last time the Reds were in Milwaukee, Frankie was out there basically chatting it up with his boys from the Reds. So we'll have to see kind of how that goes. Might be worth watching. But yeah, Joe, I mean, the Reds are they're going to be the underdogs significantly in this series, to say the least. Where are you seeing things going for them? What is there any hope left with this series, Joe?
No, they're going to go 1-3 in this one. I think the Brewers I don't think have the best roster. We talked about this all year, so we won't overanalyze it. But just really impressed with what they've done this year, hitting above their weight, playing way better than I think anyone would have expected them, even with the Yelich injury the last couple of weeks. They have a lot of guys hurt, pitchers, relief pitchers, starters. They have a lot of them hurt. That's why they got Montas. So this is a team that deservedly is going to win the NL Central, and I think took care of business this year, probably more than people expected. So 1-3 for me in this series, and then also if you're one of those gambling people or like watching the MLB playoffs, I'd be betting against them in the first series, no matter who they get matched up with, because I don't think they have much to them. They're just playing well. It's good for them.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think if they end up facing the Diamondbacks or the Padres, which seems likely at this point, I would be joining you in that betting against. But I'm gonna go 1-3 as well. I think there's a chance at 2-2 just because we are at home, and I think getting a double Friday game. I think the Reds seemingly play well on Fridays, and they definitely play well in the first game of the series. Since there are two games on the first day of the series, Joe, there's a chance that they could win both of those games. It really just depends on who's going to be available. There's a chance, I believe, that Hunter Green is available this weekend for a game if everything is as good as they are saying. So if Hunter Green comes back for a game, I think the Reds have a significant chance to win that game. And if Lodolo can kind of figure it out because he will end up pitching one of these games, then I think he has a chance as well to be a significant contributor. So I'm going to say 2. You know, I'm going to change it. I'm going to say 2 because I think Hunter Green comes back this weekend and maybe is very helpful for the Reds. There's no doubt that they have missed him in his last 2 starts, to say the least. So that's what I'm going to go with. I am going to end up going 2-2 and somehow find my way back to 4-3 this weekend because I think I just hate myself. So we'll see what happens there. But Joe, did you got any final words, any wise words as we close out this Ode to Joey Votto episode is what I'm going to be calling it?
No, I've gotten some pretty good final thoughts here the last couple of weeks, but I got nothing this week. All I'll say is the ticket prices are going down, down, down. So if you want to see some cheap baseball or see some other teams coming into town or see some how these young guys are doing, you know, you can go to the ballpark. It is putting money back in the Reds' pocket, and we're just going to pray that for once they will use that in the offseason. But yeah, there's some good players coming to town. You can get tickets for as cheap as like $3 or something. You know, something to think about.
Yeah, I got one more game coming up this year. I got the Bark in the Park game. So that should be a fun game to say the least. But yeah, my wise words are enjoy some of the players while they're here, man. I think a lot of us watched Joey Votto and maybe took him for granted And now he has retired. So, go if you love baseball, go watch the Aaron Judges, go watch the Mike Trouts as we see him still just struggling with injury, sadly, the Bryce Harpers of the world, the guys who are destined for Hall of Fame, and enjoy them while they're here. The Ellie De La Cruzes potentially, if he continues to climb the way he is. Bobby Witt Jr. was super fun to watch for me, a couple weeks ago. So make sure you guys are doing that. And yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for us, Joe. So with that, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.